and welcome back to another video. My name is Marwa and today I'm joined by Gurney, who's a physiotherapist based in Norwich. We're going to be doing this video especially for those that are into fitness and into dance, who are looking to perhaps condition their body or kind of get a bit more advice as to how to look after their body in the best way. So, Claire, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Could you please tell me a little bit about your background, physiotherapy, and what you do?
So I've been a physio for about 6 years now, which is good. So I basically, before that I had a sports science degree and I did sports massage and some personal training, and then I kind of branched out into teaching Pilates and working with more specialist populations, so people with heart disease, osteoporosis, lots of different things like that. And then I just kind of got interested in thinking perhaps I can use this in a slightly better way maybe, the skills and the knowledge that I had. So I retrained as physio. And then I've been gradually building up what I've done in Norwich for the last 6 years or so.
In terms of sort of fitness and dance, what are some common injuries that you tend to find?
So it kind of depends on what the person does. So I would say with dance, because obviously you have to be fairly flexible, you have to move a lot, you have to move quite quickly, you have to really, I suppose, test your ranges of movement when you're dancing. So more, I suppose, kind of hyperextension injuries, so maybe where people have done something too quickly, their joints moved the wrong way. That could be their back, could be their ankle, their lower leg, could even be their arm, depending on what type of dance they're doing. But it's basically usually ends up being like a ligament strain or a muscle injury, depending on the mechanism of injury and how that came about. With fitness, again, it just kind of really depends on what the person's doing. So for runners, for example, I probably would see a lot more knee pain, a lot more ankle sprains, because that's where they're putting a lot of pressure when they're running. And for the gym, it tends to more be upper body type things, so people that are more into the gym, into their fitness that way. I think the common, I suppose, fault I see is that people load too fast too soon, so that they basically just up their weight too quickly, and then that tends to lead to like neck, shoulder, back pain.
Is that within the session, or do you mean like over time? So in a session, let's say if I normally get up to 60 kilograms or something, is that going from like 20 straight to 60 that would cause the issue? Or is it like next time I go up to 100, if you know what I mean?
It could be both. It could be either, it could be people getting too confident in that session and then they might not feel it then, but it may then might come on afterwards, so you kind of get this delayed effect whereby they've done too much too soon. At the time it felt great, but their body hasn't got, I suppose, that underlying strength to be able to do that movement and not necessarily do it in the best form or the best technique. So that can then lead to a problem later. Or it is just doing it too much too soon, whether you're then more likely to get more of like a tendon type problem because you've basically overloaded it, you've done too much too soon and the body hasn't had the right resources to recover.
Yeah, makes sense. And then with the dancing, so it's kind of dance styles that I do tend to be leading and following. So we have like a partner, a leader, and then a follower. And the leader tends to like move the follower around. One thing we always talk about is not using a lot of force if you're leading. But sometimes what tends to happen, and also from the follower's perspective, keeping our frame in front so that this sort of thing doesn't happen. But I imagine sometimes if the frame is not strong, you can get motions where the arm gets overextended. Is that what you mean by is it hyperextension?
Yes, it's sort of hyperextension, overextension. Yes, exactly. It's basically where your arm is there and you move too quickly and you weren't really paying attention to your form. You can maybe move that a little bit too far, and because your attention is then on the dance and not necessarily what your arm is doing, you might feel a bit of something then, and then it might feel worse later. Or it could be, maybe work. So the other person you were dancing with wasn't the best. Like weren't paying the most attention to what the follower was doing. It could be that you do something too quickly, then you sprain somewhere, sprain an arm or sprain your back or something from just doing something a bit quicker than you maybe were prepared to do.
You hear that, leaders? Okay, so in terms of preventing those kind of injuries, then let's say for dancing, those moments where like you could get sprains and stuff like that, what would you recommend?
So practice is really important, making sure that you know what the good form is. So having basically good body awareness, so you know, yes, okay, I should have my arm here, for example, not up here, to practice. Also having the right, like doing mobility activities in addition to the dancing, to make sure that you do have a good range of movement and you're aware of how far your body is moving in any point of moment in time. So basically you have the mobility and you're less likely to overstretch something because your range of movement generally is better. And then also within that, having a level of, I suppose, almost like strength and conditioning, knowing that your body can have the strength to do slightly faster movements or newer movements without then that having a knock-on effect like in terms of risking your injury. Because if you're not necessarily that fit in the first place and you learn something new and you try and do it too fast too soon, that's when you're more likely to get injured as well. So yeah, a bit of strength and conditioning, making sure you've got a good mobility, making sure you practice the good form and the good technique.
For someone that doesn't know what mobility exercises or activities look like, I guess, what does that really mean in terms of practice?
So almost like going in and out of a stretch. So it might be things like circling your arm and like doing some warm-ups, things like that, really trying to improve your range of movement. So basically moving a joint through its available range at a fairly slow speed, but also like listening to your body while you do it. So you're going to the point where you're feeling a little bit of stiffness maybe, but you're not really pushing into it. So maybe things like deeper squats, just body weight movements, shoulder rolls, twisting your body, twisting your pelvis, just things to basically get the joints moving through the range of motion.
I'm going to show you a video of us dancing. This is mostly sensual bachata, so there's a lot of sort of rolls and body waves, and again, it's led and followed from a leader and a follower perspective. I just want you to take a look at the video and then tell me like potential problems or issues that may occur because of this style of dancing.
And is he supporting your weight quite a lot there, or is he just kind of just placing his hand there?
So we really emphasise on the leader never supports or pushes, because you shouldn't, as a follower, do moves that you cannot do yourself on your own. So I'm not sort of leaning on him here. He's just kind of moving his hand in a direction, and I'm the one who's allowing my body to go in that way. If I did feel like I was going to fall, he would realise and catch me. But generally speaking, we try and support our own weight, just because you never know if the leader's been drinking.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What's
going on,
They might
really.
like drop you by accident or something.
Exactly.
So the first thing that springs to mind is back movement. There's definitely lots of hip twists, lots of spine movements, lots of extension. So I guess in terms of to prevent injury during these movements, core work is going to be really important, but not just core as in I need to do lots of like crunches, but having like a functional core where you can move through lots of different ranges of motion. So basically, be it planking would be good because it's in a light way to have that some support, and then also things like certain back bends like from the ground, things where you're always kind of working your muscles into those positions, side bends, side planks, things where you're basically working your core muscles in different directions, not just crunching, would be really helpful to prevent that being a problem. Also, like stretches and mobility work, so making sure you do have that range of motion so that, like you rightly said, so you can do those movements yourself comfortably without a partner, and you can then do them well. So you can then, okay, I can back bend normally, I can now back bend during part of the dance, and I know that's not going to cause me any problems. So I suppose you always want to make sure that when you're dancing, that's not the first time that you're doing a movement. You've basically trained your body to be able to do those movements first before you just throw yourself straight into it. So yeah, whether that is in practicing it as part of what you do in the dance class, or whether that's something standalone that you do outside of it, I think almost just kind of treating the dancing as the last thing that you do, so you need to prepare yourself for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so. In class, we usually do like a bit of a warm up at the beginning, where we do just like sort of a little bit of gentle neck rotations. We'll do shoulder rotations. You did mention the arm. We don't do that one, so maybe we can start doing that one. Hip rotation, ankle rotations. And then we'll start with our basic step with our partners, just to warm our bodies up a little bit. But outside, obviously, what happens outside of class, I can't really control.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Whether they go do any flexibility work or they just sit down.
Which is why this video is very good for them. I'm watching you students.
Yeah.
This video is very good for them. But yeah, so just having those extra mobility sessions outside of the class. So this kind of movement we only do in our intermediate class.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We don't do it for our beginners. We tend to stick to more moderna, which is more arm work or just in sort of this solid position. And then we save all of these back bending, body rolling bits for our intermediate level, which is, people who've been dancing for a few years or been coming to classes for a few years. So we do try and maintain it in that way, but as you said, if they're doing this stuff outside of class, it probably would help a lot in terms of injury prevention. What about the day after? Because even though I do have the flexibility, for example, sometimes the day after, like my neck is hurting, my neck is sore, or sometimes my lower back. Is there anything in terms of recovery, or maybe even something you see there that maybe I could improve on in terms of form?
Yeah, I guess in terms of probably more like recovery, definitely is probably where you might want to go with it, because I think afterwards, like your muscles have worked, they might have probably done more than you would do on a normal day. The key is to keep moving. I think if things ache, generally people think, I'll do a bit less. That's to some extent that's true, but you want to generally keep moving and keep as active as possible. So don't just sit, don't just lie down. Go about your normal day. But then also, I wouldn't necessarily go and push yourself to say, right, I'm now going to go for a run, or am I going to, obviously, depending on if that feels like it's going to aggravate the problem. So I guess, like sore legs, don't necessarily go for a run. Sore neck, maybe don't spend ages at the computer. Try not to do a task the next day that might involve a lot of activity with the area that feels sore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So keep moving, but don't put too much load on the sore areas, basically. Stretching can be quite good, stretch and mobility things the day after, like a little bit of gentle yoga, gentle Pilates, a bit of walking and swimming, just to generally just keep yourself moving and stop that stiffening up from happening.
Yeah, and you've got some tutorials on your Instagram as well, don't you, with the reels on different stretches that you can do, so I'll be sure to share that with you guys. So you mentioned Pilates just now. In terms of what it is, how it works, what is Pilates, if you're going to sum it up?
So I usually try to, for someone that has no experience or knowledge of Pilates, how I normally try and explain it is it's somewhere between yoga and more of like a legs, bums and tums toning class kind of thing. So it's basically there's an element of flexibility, there's an element of strengthening as well, but everything is quite low impact, and it's more about recognising your body's your strengths and limitations. So core work is definitely a part of it, but it's more about learning how to use your core muscles in the correct way, like knowing how to isolate your deeper abdominal muscles, for example, rather than just doing lots of crunches. Form is also a part of it, so it's basically movements that you do and involve your core muscles with good form and with good, concentrating on the movement so that you're doing carefully controlled, minimising your risk of injury basically during that, but also then giving yourself that awareness of your body so that if you're then going to go and do some other kind of exercise, you have, what's possible for you. So and there's lots of different types of Pilates as well. I think as time's gone on, there's different training schools, for example, that instructors could learn from. There's different ideas that people have had with it, like let's go and do wall Pilates was a thing for a while. So there's different takes on it, but the most common sort is going to be mat Pilates, which is what I teach, which is exercises on a mat. So that could be on the floor, it could be like sitting and standing, but basically everything's more to do with your own body weight. And then there's like equipment Pilates where they might use a machine, so like a reformer or something, and then basically exercises are done on a particular machine. But the sort of basics are the same. So it's learning how to use your core muscles, doing it with good technique, good form, being aware of your posture while you're doing it. So it's more like a slow, controlled, gentle type of exercise.
And I guess then you have the benefit of having an instructor, because you obviously get a lot of YouTube videos which are like do Pilates at home, right? And whilst you're doing them, doesn't necessarily mean you've got the correct form or you've got the correct the way of doing it, right? So I guess the benefit of having an instructor is to have someone to come who understands the body, you can see your body, you can make the adjustments that are needed, especially if you've got injuries and things like that. So in terms of sort of Pilates, you do classes?
Yes, I do classes, and I do a one-to-one work as well. So I have a class that I do on Monday morning, for example, and that's sort of, I would say, beginner to intermediate level. So people can come with either no level of experience or just a little bit of experience, and then we focus more on just getting the basics right and doing it well. And I do a lot of one-to-one work with people who say might have had an injury, for example, or they've got like long-term back pain, or maybe they just feel a bit nervous into going into a class full of people that they don't know, and then it's a little bit more tailored to that individual person. So say, for example, if they've got back pain, what we do in that session are most exercises to treat the back pain, and then as they get better, hopefully to then prevent it coming back. Whereas in the class, it's more like a kind of a general, we'll do like a little bit of upper body, a bit of lower body, for example, a bit of balance work. So it's more like a holistic type of class, I suppose, whereas one-to-one is more tailored to the person. There are so many benefits linked to either option. I think it just depends on basically the person's budget, their availability, their personal preferences, the goals that they want to get out of it.
So I was looking at your website, and there's another service that you offer called hypopressives.
Yeah. Hypopressives.
I've got no idea what that is. So could you please tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a breathing technique basically that involves breathing in different positions and lots of different arm movements as well to add to that. So it's basically a technique that focuses on lateral breathing, which is another concept actually that's part of Pilates, that is focusing on breathing into the rib cage. So the aim is that if you're breathing into your ribs, you're creating like a sort of a sideways stretch into the ribs. And you're also creating some movement within the core. So the core muscles work together, the diaphragm, the abdominals, the pelvic floor, the spine, the spinal muscles, they all kind of work together as a canister, I suppose. So if you're then getting the ribs moving, working the diaphragm, you are in turn getting the other muscles to respond as well. So the aim is you're breathing outwards and you do a couple of breaths and then you hold your breath and you then almost do like a movement of the rib cage to stretch the muscles. Which then again makes all the other muscles within that kind of core cylinder react. So it's a way of using basically a breathing technique to engage your core muscles better, and then doing that in different functional positions so it carries over to day-to-day life a little bit better. So it takes a little bit of, I suppose, getting your head around. I would definitely say for anyone that's learning it, do you learn it with an instructor? There are things out there on YouTube, and there are some good things on YouTube, but I would say to make sure you're definitely doing it right, do learn it with somebody to make sure you are feeling the right thing, you're doing the right movement, you're getting the right benefit from it. It has lots of different benefits. The most well known for recently is the benefits it has for pelvic health. So women with pelvic floor problems, incontinence, or problems after they've had children, for example, by working with sometimes with those kind of problems. It's quite difficult for the woman to contract her pelvic floor. So by doing the hypopressives, it basically is creating a little bit of movement within the pelvic floor that in time will build strength and awareness in the muscles so that she can do a squeeze better, basically. So it's working the pelvic floor and the core muscles in a slightly different way than maybe what is traditionally done. Other benefits it can have, it can also work on like core strength. So anyone that finds it difficult to draw in their core muscles, engage their core muscles, that's again by doing hypopressives and getting those muscles to just kind of work a little bit to begin with over time. That would sometimes translate into a better awareness and ability to contract those muscles consciously.
So is it kind of like from the inside out? That's
exactly, yeah, from the inside out. You're getting the muscles, the deep muscles to work basically, rather than the big superficial ones. So for example, if I'm breathing into my ribs, I'm getting movement in my diaphragm, I'm getting movement in my stomach muscles, movement through the pelvic floor muscles. So you're using the breath to drive the movement rather than I'm going to consciously stuck my stomach in. So it's just a slightly different approach to it, really.
Yeah, I can see how that would be actually very useful, even from a dance perspective.
Yeah.
But also from a gym perspective, because obviously, like I'll do things like, let's say squats, for example, and like engage your core to make sure you've got good form. So I think that will be from the, as I said, inside out, will probably be also really useful in that respect. And then from a dancing perspective, we talk about good posture, making sure that we're dancing properly, engaging our core, especially for things like turns, where a lot of the turns come from like the chest and then the lower body moves rather than stepping around. Knowing how to engage those muscles is really important. So yeah, it's not a term I've heard before, but actually I think that would be really actually quite useful. So that's something, is that a class that you teach or is it one-to-one?
It's mostly one-to-one. I occasionally like a taster session, which might be like a group session, just like 2 or 3 people to basically learn the basics, but most of the time I'll teach it one-to-one, just because I think it is quite a specific technique and it can be quite easy to do it wrong. So in doing it properly is important to know that you're not going to do yourself, I don't think you'd hurt yourself doing it, but so that you wouldn't be doing it wrong, wasting your time.
So when you're working with, let's say, fitness clients or dancers, what is your approach if, let's say, someone came to you for help?
So yeah, I tend to try and make it person specific. I think it's important to understand what the person wants to get from physiotherapy. Or I suppose the reason they're coming is usually, I've got shoulder pain, for example. Yes, that's important to know, but it's also, I want to know a bit more about what it is they want to get back to doing. So say, is it dancing? Did you hate shoulder dancing? Did you hate shoulder doing something else? So I kind of want to understand what the problem is, how it happened, and what it is they want to get back to doing. And then I can kind of build a bit of a step-by-step program to think, right, well, here, this is the problem, this is what you need to do to begin with, but then I can, in my head, kind of plan what the subsequent sessions might look like. Because obviously if you're in pain and you can't move very well, your ability is going to be right down here. If what you want to do is right up here, you need a bit of a plan to almost kind of get yourself there. So I kind of want to understand those factors. I also want to know a bit more about what their day-to-day life might be. So yeah, if they've got shoulder pain, for example, and they're having to lift a child all day, well, that's the two things aren't going to really help each other. So yeah, can they get someone to help them? Are there other ways I can teach them to do that, to lift their child so they're not overloading their shoulder, for example? So I want to understand all the challenges they might have that might not help the shoulder pain, so we can address those a little bit as well. In terms of treatment, I tend to do a mixture of several things, depending on what the person's come in for. The treatment will probably look a little bit like exercise-based, because obviously in physiotherapy you're going to have to do exercises to address the deficit, so whether that's the strength deficit or a mobility deficit, the exercise or somewhere in the middle, or just something to help with the healing. There'll be an exercise program that we'll do together in the session. They'll send the person away to go and do that in their own time as well. And then it might involve a little bit of hands-on treatment, so that could be massage, that could be acupuncture, stretch, like passive stretching, and they'll be the things that basically calm down the pain, help the person to do their exercises better. The hands-on treatment won't fix it on its own. I think that's a common misconception. Some people think, I can just go for a massage, someone will fix me arm better. You probably not. It might come back again. So you probably need to do something else as well. So that's, I guess, where physio is quite nice, that it blends the two. It blends the rehab and it blends a lot of hands-on treatment to make the rehab easier. So yes, I guess depending on what the person came in for, if it's a shoulder problem, again, for example, some things might be shoulder focused, but some of the exercises might also be like core and upper body focused, because it's not always as simple as, oh, that's that problem, that's the thing I need to work on. There might be like a movement, an upper back stiffness, for example, that explains why they had to move their shoulder more, that explains why they had the injury. So everything's a little bit more tailored to the person based on their story, how the injury happened, and what I find when I actually physically assess them, which is part of the first session and subsequent sessions as well, so I can see what's going on.
So you're saying someone coming in with an injury. What if someone just wanted to just have a healthier back in general? Like, there's not been an injury per se, but let's say they just like have general light pain day to day.
Yeah, and actually I quite like working with people like this, because there's usually something that they haven't thought about. So yeah, someone say they've just got like a little bit of back pain again, or they just want to make sure they don't get back pain. I kind of have a bit of an overview of things that I might look for depending on what area of the body that they need help with really. So if it's for a back, for example, I'd probably look at their posture, I'd look at their range of movement, and chances are something would show up. So say that perhaps they weren't very flexible leaning forward, or they had a bit of discomfort leaning backwards, for example. So then I might be thinking, right, okay, well, there's a problem there. Let's try and work out what's going on. So then we might do a little bit more specific assessment, just to kind of rule out any injury, which would be a combination of asking some questions and some physical tests. And then, checking and making sure that's all fine. It would then be a little bit of exercise, again, maybe a bit of massage and acupuncture and hands-on treatment. So we kind of come up with a bit of a combination to say, right, well, this is the problem, this is the movement or the thing that you find hard. This is something else we can do to make that easier for you. And then and then I might also just include something that I know is generally good for the back, like breathing well and being aware of the posture and making sure they can engage their abdominals, for example. So we'd work on the deficit, we'd do something that's generally good anyway, and then we'd probably just monitor it to make sure that person felt that generally things were feeling better, they felt healthier in themselves and could move better, and didn't have any episodes of back pain, for example.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you very much, Claire. It's been very useful. Hopefully it's been useful for you guys as well. For those that are based in Norwich, how can people get in touch with you, or how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so my website is clairegurneypilates.com, so you can find me that way. On Instagram, I'm Claire Gurney Physio, so I'm found there. I'm on Facebook, I'm Claire Gurney Physiotherapy and Pilates, so you can find me there. I work from a place called Treat Norwich, which is slightly north of the city centre off Magdalen Street, so quite easily findable there as well. So I do lots of different services. I have a Pilates class at Spryston, Frillion on a Monday morning. So that's it for like beginners and intermediates. And yeah, everyone wants to book, they can contact me through the website, Facebook or Instagram. Obviously physiotherapy I offer as well as the hand progressives and different types of one-to-one exercise. So yeah, I'd recommend getting in touch if you've got any aches, pains, injuries, or you just kind of want to make sure that you're moving well and are as healthy as possible. Then yeah, I can help with that too.
Amazing, thank you very much. I hope you guys found that very insightful. If you've got any questions at all, just pop them in the comments below, and of course, feel free to contact Claire if you've got any other questions as well. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next video.